Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features the Uncanny X-Men number 337, cover dated October 1996. So this is the aftermath of the Onslaught storyline. Really like this cover by Joe Madureira and Tim Townsend. It reminds me of John Byrne's cover to Uncanny X-Men 114, when it was believed by Jean, the Professor and Beast that the other X-Men were dead. But I like the design here, the idea that we're looking at a reflection in a pool of water and it's raining and we get the ripple effect in the puddles on the ground, and also the distortion of the cover logo as well. So there's something somber about this cover. It's an image of the X-Men in happier times with Professor X front and center there, but a darkness has descended over the Professor in terms of his feeling guilty regarding his part in the creation of Onslaught and all the damage that has been caused, most particularly the loss of many superheroes. So let's open this one up to the splash page. We get a splash page there featuring bestial Wolverine, and he is balanced atop a railing there, and he says, "Things change, people change, you, me, every one of us, every day of our lives. The day you stop changing is the day you die." So who's he talking to as the lightning cracks behind him? Let's turn the page here and we shall see that he's talking to Professor X. And the Professor, as I said at the beginning, is in very somber mood, and Wolverine is there having in effect a heart-to-heart with him. So the Professor, or Wolverine, continues. He says, "But you don't need me to tell you that, Chuck. That's the whole reason you opened up the doors of your home to us. It's why you took a handful of mutants and dedicated your life to training us, to turning us into the X-Men." And the Professor responds, "You make me sound like Professor Charles Francis Xavier, patron saint of Homo Superior, but that's nowhere near the case anymore, is it, Logan? If it ever was. There's also Onslaught," as we get this tight close-up on his eyes. "There will always be Onslaught." So Wolverine says, "Look, that's Onslaught's creation. Wasn't entirely you, Professor. The only reason he even happened at all is because you were trying to save my life when you stopped Magneto from pulling Magneto pulled all the adamantium from Wolverine. That was back in Adjectiveless X-Men number 25. And the Professor there in shadow turns and says, "Yes, what is the expression? No good deed goes unpunished." And here we are. So we see the wreckage of the destruction caused by Onslaught. Ironic, isn't it? In a single moment of profound arrogance, I did more to destroy all that we've worked for than the legion of adversaries we've faced since our trials began. So what I think we're looking at here is the destroyed X-Mansion itself, and in it, in the rubble, in the masonry and all of that, we have our creative credits. The title of the story, Know Thy Enemy, and Scott Lobdell writer, Joe Madureira pencils, Tim Townsend and Vince Russell on inks. Over here, Richard Starking's Comic Craft on the digital lettering, and Steve Buccellato on colors. So you can see the colors there, very kind of dark grey, matching the darkness of the Professor's feeling in this issue. So Wolverine continues with the heart-to-heart, and the Professor, he tries to say, "Look, you know, he says to the Professor, he says, all the times you saved the world, no, don't even go that far. Just think of all the single lives you changed for the better, and now suddenly none of that is supposed to matter." And then Wolverine says, "Look, Professor, nobody knows better than I do what it means to struggle with your inner demons." And now the Professor turns to him and says, "Logan, do not try to equate your pain to mine. You wrestle a beast within you, a noble effort to be sure, but in the large scheme of things, no different than what many of us face day to day. I possessed the power to read minds, to wipe them clean. If I chose, I could command them to do that which I wished. Don't seek to trivialize my experience by comparing it with your own." So that sounds very imperious, but Wolverine just chuckles. "Nice try, but I ain't rising for the bait. I thought I was the original king of pushing people away. Even without your mental powers, you're good at head games, ain't you?" And the Professor, in shadow there says, "You've no idea." So like some of that imagery of the professor in shadow, like his staring eyes, the lightning cracking around him, kind of makes the reader wonder, is Onslaught about to come back again at this point? But let's turn the page, and the scene shifts to the last place that Onslaught was seen, and that is Central Park in New York City. And this is a bad guy that has been building now for a few months. It's Bastian, and he's surveying the ruins of Central Park and where Onslaught's citadel was. We've got a big pit here where it once stood, and he's observing someone standing in the pit, and that is presidential candidate Graydon Creed. And he is asking rhetorically, when? Let's turn the page, and we shall see that he's on TV, and his speech continues here. When is this going to be enough? When is it going to stop? They've taken our heroes. How much more can we give? So that is the superheroes who sacrificed themselves, the Fantastic Four, the Avengers, in order to defeat Onslaught. Peter Parker is there watching and taking pictures for the Daily Bugle, and he thinks to himself, sleaze. As Spider-Man, I lost a lot of friends in that fight with Onslaught. As Peter Parker, freelance photographer, I get a front row seat as he turns a tragedy into a sound bite. So Graydon Creed continues, my candidacy isn't about questions though, it's about answers. I'll tell you when it stops today. All I need is one vote, your vote. So in the offices of the Daily Bugle, by the way, I really like this. I like that we're seeing the X-Men now in the wider scope of the Marvel Universe. It's unusual to see Spider-Man and his world showing up in an X-Men book. So this is really good stuff. So we're in J. Jonah Jameson's office, and he's got his chief editor, Robbie Robertson, there with him. And Jameson is impressed, and he asks rhetorically, how can you not love this guy? And Robbie responds, you can't be serious, Jonah. And Jonah says, well, the man sells papers. I like that, Robbie. You have to give him that. And Jonah Jameson says, I've been in charge of the Daily Bugle for the better part of my life, and I'm telling you, there's something else about Graydon Creed. This is good. This is good characterization of Jameson. Look at his eyes, Robbie. That anger is real. It's not just about getting his name in headlines. He's doing it for a reason. So Jameson's kind of journalistic instincts are kind of tingling there, the equivalent of Spider-Man Spidey sense. I wonder. So he orders Robbie, he says, get me everything. And Robbie knows his publisher's mind. I'm on it, Jonah. So he calls up Ben Urich, Stan and Bandeveris in my office. Get them there 5 minutes ago. And Jameson continues, I'm telling you, Robbie, this might be the biggest story of the year. And readers of the X-Men know that there is a story behind Graydon Creed and his rage. And that is the fact that he is the son of two mutants, Victor Creed and Raven Darkholme, aka Mystique. So he's there ranting in the rain. If we don't act now, all we'll have left is nothing. And that is being broadcast over Scott Summers' morning radio alarm, which is beeping there at 3 minutes past 7. So it's 7 a.m. in the morning. And this is a bit strange. Like Cyclops reacts like it's as if he's on edge. He uses his optic blast to destroy his alarm, and he thinks, here I am, Cyclops, so-called leader of the X-Men, and how do I use my optic blast as a snooze button? Maybe Jean won't notice. Right, the second most power, and he's about to say the most, but he corrects himself. He's about to say the second most powerful telepath, the most powerful telepath in the world, because the professor has lost his telepathy, and I'm trying to keep a secret. But that is funny. I like the visual storytelling on this particular page of him like hiding the remains of the destroyed alarm clock in the drawer underneath his bedside table, and continuing his thoughts there. And I like, again, the visual storytelling and the acting in Madureira's pencils, where he's kind of like just pushing, the small of his back there, stretching in the morning. That's good stuff. Also, something to note is a new feature of Madureira's stylistic development. It's this thick black outline around the figures that he'll sometimes do now, and that became influential on the likes of Ed McGuinness, who would be starting his comics career around about this time as well. So Cyclops heads to the bathroom, the ensuite bathroom. I'm presuming this is the boathouse, which the professor gave Scott and Jean to live in when they got married down at Breakstone Lake. I think that's where we are because, you know, as we saw earlier, the X-Mansion is destroyed. This is a great page. Really like this page. Like the coloring on this page. Buccellado's coloring, and even look at the very fine details. If you're watching this video review in high definition, you can see the creases there on Scott's knuckles, on the knuckles on his hand. That's really nice detail. So he switches on the light in the bathroom, and also just look at this, like he wears goggles at night. So he takes the goggles, he's taking the goggles off, but here are his ruby quartz specs, right? And what is this glass that he keeps them in at night? What would that be? So he takes off the goggles, keeps his eyes closed, and puts on his ruby quartz glasses. And he's thinking to himself all the while about how, you know, he's still hobbled by his mutant power. You know, he has to keep his eyes closed, and he's thinking to himself, and surprise, surprise, the rest of the world still wants to kill us all just because we're different. Someday I just want to know, different from what? And look who's in the mirror there, reflection in the mirror, it's Beast. So he's going to open his eyes as soon as he puts those glasses on, and he sees the reflection of Beast in the mirror, and on instinct he sends out a blast which catches Beast in the chest and knocks him into the bathtub. So good, like, slapstick physical comedy going on here. And I like Beast's dialogue as well. Inconceivable. For weeks, as my deviant doppelganger delighted in deceiving you, you never laid a hand upon the so-called Black Beast. Finally, I leap, bound, and bequeath you my presence, and this is what I get. And so Scott apologizes. You startled me. Imagine how I felt. I was expecting the more sedate salutation of "Morning, Dr. McCoy. Aren't you looking particularly blue this day?" I like that. That's pretty good stuff. So anyway, there's more comic business here as Beast is wedged in the bathtub and Scott is trying to pull him out. And so they're struggling there, and then Beast manages to get himself free. And he says, free. God, I love that word. A Google thank yous, because of course he was held prisoner by the Dark Beast for weeks. So Scott here is catching his breath. At least one "you're welcome." Hey, in case I haven't mentioned it yet, says Beast, in words of one syllable, it is good to be home. Scott there smiling. It's good to have you home. Now let's get some breakfast. Jean is making her trademarked, and something is going to happen. But I really like this kind of like friendship moment, funny moment between these original members of the X-Men. It's very, very good stuff. And then what happens is he slips on an ice patch on the floor of the bathroom, and of course who's there except for another original X-Man, Iceman, the jokester, the japester, and it's just like old times again. So Scott uses his optic blast deliberately now, using that mirror, and catches Iceman in the back. So then we're in the kitchen, and Jean is making her trademarked pancakes, as it will turn out, and looking very fetching there in her dressing gown and slippers as well. And who's there with her except for Quicksilver? Now Quicksilver really is, you know, bereaved after Onslaught Marvel Universe, because his wife and his sister, as far as he knows, sacrificed themselves to defeat Onslaught. So Crystal is gone and the Scarlet Witch is gone. And Jean here realizes, you know, she was saying here about how everything is back to normal, or what passes for normal, and how it's good to hear the sound of laughter again. And she realizes Pietro's not laughing. Being around us after losing your wife and your sister must be agony for it. But he interrupts and he says, I've got to go on, if only for my daughter's sake. So that's very good. That's good characterization there of Pietro Maximoff. You know, he's got someone to keep going for. So he tells Jean, don't apologize. So Pietro grieving, but, you know, not wallowing in his grief on account of his responsibility for his daughter Luna. So Jean is there comforting him. And that's nice. That's a nice little scene. And then into the kitchen or the dining room comes Psylocke. And just as she's coming in the door, Quicksilver gets up. He doesn't want to be seen vulnerable by anyone else other than Jean. And so he sets the whole table. And who is it except for Psylocke that's coming in? And that's a pretty good shot of her as well. And she simply says to Jean as she grabs, what is that? Is it ice? Is it orange juice with ice cubes in? Warren won't be joining us. He is, and she simply says, not feeling well. Good morning. And Pietro says, and I thought I had trouble connecting emotionally with people. I like Jean's response, you do. Psylocke's been going through some changes lately, and of course that has to do with the Crimson Dawn that was used to bring her back to life after she was practically fatally wounded by Sabretooth, and it's left her with this strange tattoo on her face. So we haven't got to the full explanation of what has happened with Psylocke in relation to the aftermath of the Crimson Dawn business. And then the scene switches back to Bastian. And Bastian is making his way into a secret base, of course. I mean, that's a staple for any villain. And what are we going to see within that base? I like the detail of his force field that keeps him dry from the pouring rain. And in here we see that his minions have been gathering the remains of the Sentinels that Onslaught used in New York. These are the remains of the Sentinels that were recalibrated to serve Onslaught. And one of his underlings comes up to him, taking, interestingly, his appearance. And Bastian asks him, what's the news? And Bastian doesn't like his underling taking a shape so similar to his own. Is this all one big joke to you? He asked the guy. No, sir, I'm sorry. If we do not accomplish the task before us, he says, we will all be very sorry. Get back to work. So this is a mystery building in terms of what is Bastian, what is he, and who are these other figures that he's involved with, and why, what is it that makes them able to change shape? And all the while I'm always thinking of Nimrod, who was a shape changer, and Bastian reminds me a little bit of Nimrod. So then we're back with the heart-to-heart chat between Wolverine and the Professor. Look at the colors on this particular 2-page spread. Really dark, really grim, matching the Professor's mood. So the Professor here, negative, he thinks he's responsible for everything. And Wolverine says, well, okay, if you feel responsible about everything, then let's do something about it. Let us in, let us help. You're looking at the world's original loner, he says. I never thought I needed nobody for nothing. I thought I could take on the entire world all by my lonesome. I was wrong. When you very first asked me to join the X-Men, I said yes, because I thought that was my way out of Department H. It's all the way back in Giant Size X-Men #1, 1975. But there's a reason I stayed. One reason, you, he says. And me and a lot of other people, Chuck. We'd hate to think you just pulled one over on us. So the Professor is there, his eyes closed. He's thinking about Wolverine's words. Is he going to come in from the rain and the storm, or what? So let's get past the ads here, but I will make a little comment on the X-Men Clandestine crossover, written and drawn by Alan Davis. I do have that in my collection. Anybody interested in reviews of that crossover, let me know in the comment section to this particular video. And then back in the boathouse. And yeah, it is the boathouse, because see the little tree stump there with the rope for mooring a boat. Yeah, so we are down at the boathouse, Jean and Scott's marital home. So in from the rain comes Gambit, and Scott Lobdell works in a little kind of ironical joke there where he says, finally, I knew if I wore this trench coat long enough it'd eventually come in handy. But he's in his civilian clothes, as is everyone except for Psylocke. And Bishop there as well. And Gambit asks, so where is everybody? And Bishop responds, everybody? Because these two now are kind of buddies, as in everybody who isn't here. And B says, come on, Gambit, you can say it aloud. All right, already, where's Sam? And then more quietly, and Rogue and Magneto. So Jean corrects him. Joseph didn't feel quite comfortable being around everyone just yet, but she gives Gambit his big stack of pancakes. So Rogue took him into Salem Center for breakfast. Now Gambit is jealous. I wonder why, he asks. And Sam, he continues with that big grin on his face. And Bishop says Sam passed because he assumed Magneto was going to be here. C, Magneto, right? So why is everybody calling him Joseph? What is that all about? He says more quietly. And then we get a big X-Men family scene here. And you see also again that thick black outline, holding line for the characters. Very interesting, like stylistically. Like it's a new edition, because on this page, I'm pretty sure, like this is a Tim Townsend ink page, and he's not using that thick black outline. My guess is that this is a Vince Russell inked page, and he's the one using the thick black outline or holding line. Let me know in the comments whether you like this stylistic device or you don't like it. But it's interesting too, you know, we get to see what the different X-Men are eating for breakfast. So Bishop there has got scrambled eggs and bacon. Gambit is having Jean's trademark pancakes. Jean herself is having bacon and eggs. Scott is having bacon and what are those? Not sure. Something American maybe. Bacon and eggs there for Iceman. Egg and is it potatoes? Potatoes for Pietro. And Betsy Psylocke is having fruit. That's interesting. She's having a banana and blueberries. And poor old Beast, his pancakes are ruined by Iceman. I don't know, that just makes me funny. I mean, it's pretty goofy, but it's funny all right. And I like this little bit here where Bishop is asking for some salt. So he's already got bacon. He's going to salt his scrambled eggs. Betsy, could you? And she's like, here. And she's already passing him the salt, past the salt. So, you know, that's kind of like her telepathy. She's not controlling it. She is picking up on what people's thoughts are and intentions. And that's a little bit different from older Betsy pre-Crimson Dawn, who would not spy on, but not like try and put up a block between her telepathic power and other people's thoughts. So is that a little hint about, I mean, it's comic, but also is it a hint about the changes wrought by the Crimson Dawn? So the whole question now is the professor going to join them for breakfast? The door opens. They all turn around in expectation. Let's turn the page. No, it's just Wolverine coming in from the rain. Chuck isn't up to company right now. He says, hey, I tried. So he sits down quietly. Nobody's saying anything. And Jean hands him a big stack of pancakes. No, it's not Jean. It's Scott that hands him that, I think. Let me just check here. It is Scott. So that's nice, actually. You know, those two old rivals. And who is it that asks, anyone object to a round of grace? Oh yeah, it's Beast asks it. So Iceman says, go ahead, Hank. And he says, in words of one syllable, thanks for everything, amen. That was 3 syllables. Gambit was about to say. Clamet Cajun says somebody. And then there's almost going to be a food fight. Cyclops unleashes a optic blast, and that's the end of the issue. So Scott Lobdell, every time there's a big crossover story, a big serious dramatic story, he'll have one of these quiet issues. And this one is not too bad. Interesting to see the X-Men eating breakfast. And, you know, it makes sense that the professor is moping after, you know, playing a partial role in unleashing onslaught on the world. So next month, the return of the high-flying Angel. So why is it Angel isn't joining them for breakfast? Well, we'll find out next issue, yes? And then at the end of this, we have a preview. More previews of Heroes Reborn. starting with Jim Lee's Fantastic Four. So we've got a few pages from before, because in his Heroes Reborn Fantastic Four, he retold the origin of the Fantastic Four. So they're getting ready for their space flight. And yeah, the art is very good. Jim Lee pencils, Scott Williams inks. It's good stuff. And there they are, launching a very 1996 shuttle compared to Jack Kirby's back in 1961. And then we've got 3 pages from Rob Liefeld's Captain America. And one thing about Rob Liefeld's art and character design that I've always thought is that many of his male faces, they look like him. It's like he's looking in a mirror and drawing himself. Like, this is the most Rob Liefeld looking character he's ever drawn. He's drawing Captain America with his own face. There. Am I right? Am I wrong? Tell me what you think in the comments section. And then another couple of pages from that. And basically, Liefeld's Captain America's amnesiac about his identity as the Captain America of World War II. And he's about to discover all of that again in the opening of the first issue. So there you go. No letters in the... Oh no, there was letters. There was one letters page in this particular issue. But there you go. The X-Men after Onslaught, the Professor feeling very guilty, and what the X-Men eat for breakfast. Let me know your thoughts on this issue in the comments section. If you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like the video on YouTube and consider sharing it. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.